Let's welcome in our panelists for the remainder of this hour. Joining me to discuss, Republican strategist, host of the 13-Minute News Hour, Bobby Eberle. Also, veteran Gunnery Sergeant Marine from the U.S. Marine Corps, Jessie Jane Duff, and Newsmax contributor Jenna Ellis. Thank you, panel, for being with us on this Friday here. Jessie Jane, start us off. Maybe your reaction to, of course, that public denouncement of those Border Patrol agents, the actions that they were done, the initial call for the investigation, and now there's been silence. Your thoughts?
This administration fails to stand by the dedicated, hardworking Americans. They'll turn their backs on them at every opportunity. They have failed to stand by the military. They're discharging many unvaccinated, healthy, young men and women who will refuse the vaccination. They're not allowing federal workers to keep their jobs unless they get vaccinated by their mandates. They are turning their backs on the very people that have dedicated their lives towards this country. We have nurses that no longer can work. We're going to have police officers, sanitation workers. The lunacy is abound because we're going into our second year of this virus. And yet, if those people were able to perform their jobs for 2 years during the peak of COVID, they now will turn their backs on them. So we should not be surprised. And they are dismantling this government drip by drip. They are trying to ensure that only like-minded people are working for the federal government, the workforces, the military, and your state governments. It's just ludicrous and absolutely shocking.
Well, I wanted to get our panelists' reaction to that Wall Street Journal report. Again, this is in regards to payments, about $450,000 to migrants who'd been separated at the U.S.-Mexico border. And they're saying this is under the zero tolerance policy in 2018. Jenna Ellis, they're citing this as a time during the Trump administration here. These payments could be going out to these migrants. Your thoughts on the priorities of the Biden administration when it comes to sending this amount of money to those migrants who attempted to come here illegally?
Yeah, well, the priorities of the Biden administration are certainly not anything that the Constitution requires of our federal government. And so Jessie Jane is absolutely correct that the Biden administration is not only turning their backs on Americans, but they're actually making it very clear that they don't care about Americans, they don't care about America, and they're going to do everything possible to show that they have a priority of anyone and anything else over and above securing and protecting the fundamental rights and liberties of Americans, including our economy, including spending, including closing the border and just making sure that the law is followed. And so to invoke something from 2018 and somehow try to spin this as if this is somehow the Trump administration's fault or in any way that this can be borrowed from the Trump administration is just, again, trying to spin the narrative. There's no justification for this whatsoever. Where are they going to get this money? They're trying to usher in socialism. This is absolutely ludicrous, and everyone should require that the Biden administration actually prioritize Americans first.
Okay, Bobby, just got about 15 seconds for you to weigh in on this story.
Oh, sure thing. One thing to keep in mind with the Wall Street Journal story, they talk about people seeking asylum. They're claiming asylum because they know the system can be gamed, and they can get in by claiming asylum. That's why children were separated, because these criminals needed to be investigated, and you can't arrest children.
Yeah. Still waiting for the Biden administration to respond to that story, but we're going to keep an eye on it. Panelists, please stay with us. A lot to get to this hour.
All right, panelists back in with us. Bobby Eberle, Jessie Jane Duff, Jenna Ellis, welcome back. Bobby Eberle, I'll start with you. Rapid fire responses on this. Overall here, again, Iran nuclear talks. A lot of this comes down to relationships, too, and the idea of trust and trusting the Iranian regime. Is that even there?
No, there's no trust at all. And what your guest said is very important, because as countries see the weakness of the Biden administration, they are actually going to be likely to turn to places like Russia and China, because even though China and Russia are sympathetic to Iran, they don't want them going rogue with nukes. It just increases the power of countries that are hostile to us because of Biden's weakness.
Jessie Jane Duff.
Iran was the largest state sponsor of terrorism throughout the world. Any type of nuclear capability in their hands is going to be a threat to all of our entirety and human existence. We have seen their proxies in Iraq. We know that they have been throughout the world. We know that Boko Haram has been funded by them. We know that multiple terrorist organizations. This is an absolute threat. And when they say they only need it for peaceful purposes, when they have their own oil and energy right there, I'm sure they could use solar, is just a flagrant lie.
Jenna Ellis, in your opinion, in your thoughts, how do conservatives or even really moderates, those that may oppose the Iran nuclear talks, how do they feel about this latest move?
Well, I think that everyone is very disappointed in the weak and ineffective leadership of Joe Biden. And this is exactly why we need a strong leader in America, because even though obviously the United States is now part of this deal, we are supposed to be a national leader in terms of on the world stage. And everyone knows that Joe Biden can't handle this. And that's why it's very scary, I think, for a lot of Americans and conservatives. And so looking ahead to 2022 and 2024 especially, I think there's a lot of Biden regret, and people are going to show up at the polls. They're going to vote for a strong leader, and that's not going to be anyone remotely close to Joe Biden or any of the Democrats.
I just got to point out the obvious. We're talking about Iran nuclear deals getting done, yet a deal with the Build Back Better agenda, the spending plan, still not even done. So maybe we start with that, but what do I know anyway? Bobby Eberle, Jesse Jane, and Jenna Ellis, thank you so much for joining us. Do appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend, whatever that may entail this Halloween weekend. Good to see you.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.